You're listening to The Talent Sync, a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's episode is about AI recruiting realities for 2026. Enjoy the podcast. Leah, Happy New Year to you. It is so good to see you. And you actually had a little bit of a rough couple of weeks, didn't you?
Happy 2026. It's going to be a banger. Yes.
Actually, yes. I don't know if you want to share that or not. I know I kind of brought that up, but...
Everybody get your shingles vaccine, everybody. Get your shingles vaccine.
I was leading down the path without your permission. Yes, get your shingles vaccine. That's all you need to say. That's all I gotta say.
That's all I need to say. Just do that.
Get your shingles. For those of you of a certain age, get your shingles vaccinations. And you weren't even of that certain age. But anyway, that's another story.
Oh.
Well, you're better now, right? And we're here. We're in 2026. And it's only 2 weeks in of this recording, and it feels like it's a year already, right?
Yeah, I feel like we are already on the 826th day of 2026. So there we go.
That's the way it's been. I think since COVID, that's been the joke, that it's January 156th, right?
Oh, it really is.
Constant, but that's okay. We're here. Our kids are back in school, so that's good news. That's always nice after the nice holiday break. We took our kids to Disneyland, which we've been doing since they were 3 and 5, and now they're teens, but we all had a blast and love Disneyland. And man, it's just it's a buttload of money, as the expression goes. But man, it's fun. Oh, it's fun.
It is fun. But you gotta do some fun things.
We love our Disney. So there you go. But we're back in the saddle and working. And I'm excited, before we get into the main topic du jour, that finally, which has been the case this time of the year for many years now, the bulk of our latest candy research from last year's data is coming out. So 2 of our pieces, just a quick plug out there for everybody, 2 of our pieces are done and available to download at the surveil.com site. And then the big report, we're just finishing it up. Hopefully it'll launch next week. But excited about that, and of and lots of new goodies that we included this year, including, which can be a nice segue to what we're talking about, a related segue, that one of the main improvement recommendations that we made to all the organizations, that the well over 110 that participated last year in our benchmark research, the recommendation about getting the messaging to their candidates that AI is not selecting them out, if they're not using AI for selection purposes, or if they are, that humans are making the final decisions in everything. Because that was one of the greatest candidate complaints, negative complaints from last year, especially those that were dispositioned shortly after they applied, even if you take serial appliers out. But one of the top recommendations was get messaging on your website, get messaging into the candidate communications. How much it's going to help, I don't know, but at least being as transparent as you can was one of the top things, because regardless of what we're going to talk about next, AI ain't going anywhere in recruiting, hiring, in our lives. It's here.
It's here. It's here. It's full of misperceptions, misbeliefs, inflated expectations, and all the good stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because you and I both put out a newsletter this week, right? So the Surveil newsletter for the candies, and then JobSync's quarterly newsletter. Yep. And we both mentioned the exact same article, which is about Salesforce announcing that they are pulling back on some of their AI-based products.
Yep.
And I think it's a really interesting, first of all, it's super brave. I'm going to give them a lot of credit. It's very brave to put that out there and into the market and say it out loud.
Right.
But I think it's a reflection of something that we're seeing. We're seeing this in the market, right? You were just telling me before we started to record, George LaRock has been on the drum, and he was on my roundtable last month talking about this, that there is this idea of AI in recruitment and hiring, and then there's the execution of it and people actually using it. And there's a pretty good sized gap right now between those two. And I want to throw something out at you for us to chew on for this today, which is we've been playing with various AI agents over here at JobSync, and many companies are. You have to. It's part of you want to play in technology. Mm-hmm. This is part of the gig right now. Yeah. And we're sort of in this duality of like, wow, it's so great in this case, and ooh, what about right there? And there are places where I am floored by how good the AIs can deliver. So I'll give you some examples. I use it for contracts. So I get a contract from a company, and I want to compare that to our template. I'll put the two in and say, show me the differences. Right? So it gives me a really great summary and pinpoints where the problems and differences are. It's really good at that.
Can let me just so I understand, you're talking about if it's their quote unquote paper they're sending you.
Yeah, their paper versus my paper.
And you want to compare and contrast and see.
Yes. Oh, it's super good at it. And what I like about that is its ability to consume two fixed pieces of information and give me back data on it.
Yeah.
Conversely, we've been playing with an AI, and when it's a generative AI where it doesn't have that real fixed rail, that's where we see opportunity for problems. I think that's what Salesforce is saying, right? If it's a little bit of data and you've got rails on it, it's great.
Yeah.
But for example, if you're asking an AI to do a full interview with one of your candidates, it's going to be good 90% of the time, and that 10% where it's not good is actually a real problem for your business. Like, are you willing to accept a 10% failure rate, or a 5%, or a 3%? Where's the tolerance for your AI recruiter, or your AI interview, or your AI chatbot, where it doesn't respect the rules of your brand and your expectations on how you interact with a candidate?
This is why at least the employers that we have worked with, and we're actually rolling out some more AI data analysis tools in Surveil with the feedback that they receive from the Candy level, which we have been doing for a long time too, to the enterprise level. So we're embracing more of it too. But yes, we're giving it specific guardrails. They can turn it on and off if they're wary about having AI analyze some of their data that we get from them. But I think that there is this. I just was referring to it as it's just going to be really messy for the next few years. In where we're at right now, because there are companies, and I just had a community call yesterday with about 10 of our community that come on our monthly call, and we were just talking shop about how are you using the Candy feedback data or candidate experience feedback data that you get? How are you using it to inform improvements, to make improvements? But then we kind of talked about AI a little bit too, and there's companies that are still in kind of the wait and see approach because of the litigation that the Workday and HireVue itself and some other things that continue to grow. But I do agree when it's very, very specific, and it has the guardrails. I mean, I just know that, but more companies are leaning in, and I've told you this before because it came out in our research, that are leaning in on using AI for screening and selection at the application stage, and because the antenna volumes that they're receiving, they're missing people, they're not getting anything, and if they have the right partnership with the vendor and they're training the data and they have those very specific guardrail instructions of what I want you to do, and there's still human oversight. That's kind of the thing that I wonder, because there's still a lot of this talk. Like McKinsey just came out and said, "Oh, we're embedding AI in everything we do, including our interviewing." And I mean, everybody's still all in on this kind of this what they're again this latest technology transformation. But I just don't see, and I think that's what we're seeing with Salesforce and others, is that these full-blown enterprise level releases just aren't working like they thought they were going to work, and they're turning off customers. Now, whether in that same article, whether that doesn't really say that it's connecting. Salesforce shares were down last year, based on this article, and that I don't know if you want to connect that directly to AI. Maybe part of it's that too. I mean, I know there's been a ton of economists and others out there saying that we are in an AI bubble still. But I wonder. I mean, now that Workday has Paradox, right? Paradox, and I've just noticed that they're starting to do this roadshow, with Workday combined with HiredScore combined with Paradox. And trying to get that out there, that end-to-end high volume hiring, right? And that's what Paradox kind of
right. But I think it's important to note, especially for Paradox is kind of known for the chatbot.
Yeah, the conversational AI chatbot. Yeah.
But if you look at sort of the fundamental of how that chatbot works, actually the AI part is more about natural language interpretation than what a generative AI might be called. And this is actually part of the issue, right? Is that word AI now has infiltrated so much of what we're talking about, but it means lots of different things, right? So I think Paradox has incredible guardrails on their AI because it's really about language interpretation and response. There is, I guess, some more AI in their ATS. I have not gotten an opportunity to play with that, so I can't comment on it.
Right.
Where HiredScore is looking at a much more complex AI modeling, where while there's human oversight, quote unquote, because you see the score and you can decide what to do, I think there's also a reality of humans when confronted with 1,000 applications and scores on them are not validating. Did it do it right? They're sorting and working at the top level score and working their way down.
Right.
I think that is a reality that the oversight piece it glosses over a lot of times. And I think that part becomes hard when somebody figures out there's a fairness problem or a discrimination problem. But until they figure that out, it feels like a relief to the recruiter because they don't have to go look at 1,000 applications. Now, they weren't going to look at 1,000 anyway.
No, they weren't going to be able to. And a lot of times they look at the first 200 and then they have to put a cap.
Yeah. Right. It's indiscriminate.
Yeah, they can't. Yeah. That's true.
So there's that. Yeah. So I think there's some things in there. I think the point you just made, though, which is I'm being screened out by an AI, that is one of these misperceptions that is driven by people who are seeking profit to get candidates to consult with them, to rewrite their resume and help them apply and do all of the things. And now these apply bots are using that same messaging, trying to capitalize on a fear that has been in this market for a while, but not really substantiated by any sort of technology. Now, yes, more and more technology exists for AI to screen. And this is the one we're going to see what happens. Because I will tell you, I've looked at a whole bunch of these interview screeners, and like I said, 95% of the time they do okay. And then 5% of the time, the generative piece goes off the rails.
Yeah. There was a, I might have mentioned this to you last year. I don't remember. There was a NPR radio hour, TED radio hour that they do. There's a regular show where they do different stories about different things. And there was one about AI. This was like last fall. My wife had sent it to me to listen to. And there was a journalist who wrote a book about AI and recruiting and hiring. And I don't remember her name right now. And to be perfectly clear, I did not read the book. I read some excerpts of it. But one of the things that we're talking about, and this is in the past couple of years too. This wasn't super recent, but they were trying to test some platforms like HireVue and others when there was an assessment portion and AI was involved in screening of the video responses, that one way of recorded video responses that candidates would leave. And one test that they did, they just kept repeating, because what they were finding was there were some anomalies. There were some highly qualified people that were being disqualified.
Yep.
And there were those who are obviously, after an actual human intervention and interview, were not qualified at all for the role, that they were scored very high. So, I mean, there are always things that have to be adjusted and fixed out when you're dealing with algorithms too. But there was one person who just kept saying over and over again, "I love teamwork," to every answer was asked. Just, "I love teamwork.
I mean, who doesn't?
I love teamwork." And they had a super high score in their assessment. But I mean, and I'm sure since that's been accounted for and adjusted. But I think that the screening that will, it's going to continue to grow though. So there are going to be companies that they're going to make those investments. They're going to start experimenting. They're already telling me that they are now. At the end of the day, but what's interesting is that there are some issues that are market driven right now that have been driving candidate angst. Now that's contributing to that resentment because it's a crappy market too, right? So especially for salaried professionals and management and senior leadership, it's a pretty horrible market. And what's interesting is that previously in our research, one of the type of screening interview process, et cetera, that it always got the lowest scores historically in our data was the one-way video recording. You're listening to the Talent Sync. Keep on syncing. With us, not really sync with us. Thank you. What do your candidates think of your recruiting process? The annual Candy Benchmark Research and Awards program helps you and your organization measure and understand your overall candidate experience ratings from pre-application to onboarding. Benchmark your candidate experience today. Go to surveil.com/candies, CANDES.
Oh, yes.
But last year, though, after finishing our big research report, I was a little bit surprised that it actually leveled out. And I think the only reason why it did is because in an anemic market, any engagement has a positive bump with a candidate. So, and I think if I'm getting offered to answer some questions, I'm still in the running, and I think that changed the perception because I've already applied for dozens of jobs, just depending on the situation, especially for older folks. And again, I'm not whether the industry is rife with ageism or not. There's a lot of people that have been on the market for a long time now. And this year is not going to be any exception, and the new grad market's probably going to be just as rough as it was last year. Somebody did share an article with me. It was Robert Half. I didn't read the whole thing yet, implying that maybe we're heading to a great thaw. I don't know about that. Maybe. I mean, but not in this volatile market though right now with hiring. But doesn't it seem like to you, Leah, that right now in the AI and recruiting and hiring has gotten a little quiet? Or is it just because it's the beginning of the year?
I think that we have seen a lot of quelling of the AI-ness. I think everybody recognizes a couple things. From a vendor perspective, it's not a differentiator, that's for sure. It's in fact foundational. It's expected. It's sort of like saying, well, I'm online. Like, okay, who isn't? Well, I'm using text. So you can read this, not even SMS. Like, we're using text. But we've all accepted that AI is no longer the differentiator that it was. In fact, this is a couple times I've heard this conversation go, not having AI has become a differentiator. Like, well, that's actually kind of funny, right? The anti-AI movement is having their moment, and it's not a terrible statement because it is a little overwhelming where you're like, okay, you two have AI, great. I don't even know what that means anymore because AI has now become synonymous with automation. It's become synonymous with large language models, right? It's become synonymous with so many things that we've talked about in the past that it's just, it has no clarity of what you mean by just saying you're AI. So I think that's part of why it's gotten a little quiet.
I've talked to, there are still multiple, it's still the majority of companies that we have worked with that aren't using AI for selection, for example. There may be other things, chatbot functionality, and they proudly say they don't use AI to screen applications right now. I mean, and that's fair. Again, for those, the high volume hiring, I don't think there's any way around not trying to make the technology work, to be honest, because even if they still had full recruiting teams, it's overwhelming, and we're definitely gonna hear and see more of that. I mean, like I said, we're releasing some AI that we're excited about, but it's very controlled. And again, there's flexibility with how our customers use it and whether they want to use it or not. And I think that's really but I anticipate this year to see even a bigger bump of employers leveraging, especially with screening, matching, ranking, and helping them to make selection decisions. I think that we're going to see, even no matter what happens, even with pullback, I think we're going to see more of that happening because they're just leaning in now anyway. A lot of organizations are, and but models like high volume hiring, they've already been experimenting with that. I mean, there's some companies that we work with on the candidate experience surveying side that have been, Paradox customers for many years too. And because of their high volume model, they've got it. It's working for them. Even though I know that there were some issues before in the past with that platform, but I think that maybe some more of it. So the reality of how AI is applied in these platforms and in the recruiting structure and the process, I think is going to sink in more maybe this year. I know that when you were talking about at the beginning of the call that you're playing with it some more, and I do every day. I mean, I use the tools every day for anything I do, whether it's for research or, again, comparing two documents, comparing multiple documents and saying summarize them for me, or I mean things that I can do as a human, but I don't consider it cheating or plagiarism. It is a productivity tool, to be perfectly honest. I still have to review things. I mean, those things have been amazing of what I can do today.
It's interesting you say that, right? One of the things that I was talking to someone recently about is when you're looking at your team this year, people on your team, two things you really should be focusing on. One, who leans in and is using the productivity tools and making them productive for them. Also, who's recognizing when they don't help on productivity. This is a thing that I observed recently is you tell people to use the tool, so they use the tool even if it's making them worse.
Yeah.
Right? So helping them be empowered on when to walk away from certain tools that aren't being productive. But then there's that second piece, which is the review piece. And I do think that people are really falling down on that. I think we as humans are bad reviewers. I think we're bad editors as a rule, not as individuals, but as a group, right? We skim, we don't read, we miss the details, we miss that important statement that wasn't true, right?
So we read over things that we don't see because our brains just don't see it. We don't want to see it, or we think that. I mean, yes, that's why actually, at least maybe this is where the technology will also be more and more helpful. But behind every good writer is a great editor. That's what I've always believed since I wrote my first business book. Are you there? Oh, you froze for a minute. That's all right.
We're back.
We're back. Behind every good writer is a great editor, and I think that's actually where technology will be a lot more helpful. I don't want in my day-to-day business, I don't mind using the tools to help me to content faster, to develop content faster. I still like writing my own articles and pieces as a professional and as a researcher and everything, but I definitely will use the tools when I need to
I,
to
I
get
love.
there.
I like to write, and I actually find it is actually a very good editor for me.
Yeah.
Where I will give it, I think it's better than Grammarly, right? Grammarly's looking at each individual word, where I'm like, make me more concise, and it's like, here's another version, and I'll look at that and take from it.
Sure.
Oh, I like that. I like the way that worded a sentence. I'm not ready to give up the control, but I do like it. But my point is, I think that we got to look at our teams now and say, all right, who is leaning in? Who's trying new things? Who's developing the skills to edit and to critically read what they have from an AI perspective, and who's becoming more productive and who's walking away from things that are not productive activities for themselves. So I think that's a big thing for this year. And I think you're talking about new grads. This is where new grads are going to be super interesting. Can they come with that set of skills? Because that is a different requirement than we've ever had in the past for our new grads as they enter the workforce.
This is also why, and I'm telling why there are fractures and breaks in and around education that need to be kind of revitalized and revisioned, because me being like, I'm on my local school board, and I know our school district and many, not only in California but across the nation, that are trying to get ahead of it and progressive, is how do we build out curriculum that doesn't encourage plagiarism and cheating, because that's a big concern right now, and but that encourages the use of AI technologies and tools to better facilitate learning and growth and all the things that we want and academic progress, right? And we're definitely in the midst of that in our district, and many others are. But that's going to play up to college. Is how are we again preparing our kids, our elementary kids, our secondary kids, and how to be better prepared. Because, there's CEOs left and right are coming out and saying you need to be able to use AI in your job, especially white collar, which is probably the most in danger. White collar knowledge professionals in our workplace right now, and or consider trades. I mean, we have good friends of ours. Her son is going to be a plumber, and I'm like, you go, man. I mean, that's definitely in demand, and so I mean, I just but I think that to kind of wrap this conversation up, that there's going to be a lot of reality checks this year and next, I think, with how AI is being used in recruiting and hiring, and on a corporate level, a company level, and a personal professional level. But we do have to lean in. We have to. It's like with any other thing. When the internet first came online, we've to thrive in the workplace today, you're going to have to know how to use these tools, and to make you more productive. And that's the same thing with recruiting and hiring. So I think that one of the things, the last thing I'll say is that I was pointing out to a lot of companies this last fall, and even starting this year, that at the point of application is where we'll see more and more AI automation. That's where we're going to see that. And then from screening to offer to onboard is where all the humans will still play for now, even on the hourly level. And that's the hiring managers, recruiters, and store managers, and the candidates. That's where all the human stuff's going to happen. But the application will be more and more automated. We're going to have an AI escalation with candidates using tools, trying to get in the door, and employers trying to combat that and better screen. That's what I see.
I think one of the pieces that, we've talked about this before, the traditional job posting, everybody applies model is going to reach its breaking point. But I don't personally love the shift that we've seen where candidates give up their data and the AI decides what they're qualified for.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the last one.
Yeah. I think the candidate autonomy piece is important.
Yeah, it is.
And so I do think that we are going to be in an interesting period where what we started with this conversation, or I think we're going to back off some of these AI tools. I think we're going to lean into other ones, but I think transparency and your comment about transparency and how companies are using it is actually the most important one.
It is.
Like, get your statements. I mean, the number of statements that say, worry about candidate fraud. This is the email domain that we always email from. Those are really important things that they're putting on their career sites. Please put on your career site how you're using AI. Yep. Candidates do want to know. I think that's my plead, but I do think that we are reaching a bit of a settling point of where AI is going to be helpful and where it is going to create problems. And I think 2026 is going to be the year in which everybody sorts that.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with it. Well, Leah, as always, love getting synced with you, talent synced with you. Hope everybody, the listeners, thanks for listening. We appreciate you being here. We'll keep this conversation going this year throughout 2026. And as always, Leah, it was a pleasure and glad that you are ready to go for 2026.
Let's do it. I love it.
Let's do it. All right.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Surveil, Candy, and JobSync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe to our podcast via your favorite podcast player today.